The gift bags sat on opposite ends of the linen tablecloth like opposing armies. My sister's was from Neiman Marcus. Cream-colored, rope handles, tissue paper blooming from the top like an expensive flower. Mine was from Walgreens, white plastic, already starting to tip over from the weight of the frame inside. Between them, Mom's mimosa caught the afternoon light streaming through the country club windows, casting golden shadows that somehow made the distance between those two bags look even wider. I should have known better than to come. But it was Mother's Day, and despite everything, I'd flown back to Connecticut for the ritual humiliation we called brunch. 23 years of service, 4 deployments, 3 Purple Hearts, and somehow I always ended up back at this table, watching my family perform their favorite sport, pretending to understand my life while simultaneously dismissing it. "Tiffany, honey, you look exhausted," Mom said as I slid into my chair. She was already 2 mimosas deep, her book club friends flanking her like a protective detail. "When was the last time you had a proper facial?" "Tuesday. Fallujah has excellent spa services." The sarcasm sailed over her head like a drone at 30,000 feet. "You see, Patricia," Mom turned to the woman on her left, "this is exactly what I mean. She's so defensive about everything. I keep telling her she needs to find a nice, stable job where she doesn't have to travel so much. Something respectable." My sister Brienne arrived in a cloud of Chanel No. 5 and self-satisfaction. She was wearing what she called her casual Sunday best, a Roland Mouret dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her husband Philip followed, already on his phone, already mentally calculating how quickly they could escape back to their estate in Greenwich. "Mother!" Brienne air-kissed both of Mom's cheeks. "You look absolutely radiant." "Oh, stop, you're the one who's glowing. Philip, doesn't she just glow?" Philip grunted without looking up from his phone. I ordered coffee, black. The server, a kid who couldn't have been more than 20, looked at me with something like recognition before quickly glancing away. It happened sometimes. Not often enough to compromise operational security, but often enough to remind me that I lived in 2 completely different worlds. "So, Tiffany," Brienne settled into her chair with the practiced grace of someone who'd never questioned whether she belonged anywhere. "Still doing that security thing?" "Something like that." "She's so mysterious about it," Mom explained to her friends, her voice carrying that particular tone that suggested she was both bragging and apologizing simultaneously. "We think she might be a mall cop or something. She won't really talk about it." "I've talked about it," I said evenly. "You just don't listen." "See? Defensive." Mom reached across and patted my hand like I was a particularly difficult child. "We're just concerned, sweetheart. You're 43 years old. Brienne has the house, the husband, the country club membership. What do you have? Some apartment in Virginia you won't even let us visit?" "North Carolina, actually." "Well, wherever. The point is, we worry. Don't we worry, Patricia?" Patricia, who'd probably never worried about anything more serious than which caterer to use, nodded sympathetically. The conversation drifted to safer topics: Brienne's recent renovation, the neighborhood's property values, who had been accepted to which club. I let it wash over me like background noise, the same way I'd learned to filter out the sound of distant artillery fire. My phone buzzed. A text from General Morrison: "Enjoy your leave, Colonel. You've earned it." I almost laughed. If he could see me now, sitting at a table where my mother was explaining to her friends why my career choices were such a disappointment, while my sister showed off photos of her custom closet renovation. "Are you on that phone again?" Mom frowned. "This is family time, Tiffany." "Work stuff." "On a Sunday? See, this is exactly what I mean. No work-life balance." "Brienne, tell her about your new life coach." Brienne launched into a detailed explanation of some wellness guru who charged $500 an hour to tell wealthy women that they were special. I tuned out, watching the other diners instead. Old money and new money mixing uneasily over eggs Benedict and bottomless mimosas. A retired couple celebrating their 50th anniversary in the corner, a young family trying to keep their toddler from destroying the china. And at the bar, nursing what looked like a whiskey neat, a man in his 70s wearing a navy windbreaker. Present time, Brienne announced, as if we were at a birthday party instead of a Mother's Day brunch that felt more like a performance review. She lifted her Neiman Marcus bag with both hands, treating it like it contained the crown jewels. Mother, I know how stressed you've been with the garden club fundraiser and Daddy's retirement, so I got you something to help you relax. Mom opened the bag like she was unwrapping a Fabergé egg. Inside was a leather folio containing a certificate for a spa weekend in Napa Valley. 3 days, 2 nights, full treatments, meals included at a Michelin-starred restaurant. Brienne! Mom's hands flew to her chest. This must have cost a fortune! Only the best for you, Mother. The book club friends cooed appropriately. Patricia actually applauded. Brienne glowed with the satisfaction of someone who just won a competition nobody else knew they were competing in. Your turn, Tiffany, Mom said, and I heard it. That slight drop in enthusiasm like a stock price falling after bad earnings. I pulled the frame from my Walgreens bag, no tissue paper, no presentation. Just a simple black frame containing a photograph that I'd spent 3 hours selecting from thousands. Mom took it with the kind of smile you give to a child who's made you a macaroni necklace. Oh, a picture! How sweet! She held it for maybe 5 seconds. I counted, before setting it down under the table, propped against the leg of her chair where nobody could see it. Brienne's gift stayed displayed on the chair beside Mom, certificate fanned out so everyone could see the Napa Valley logo. That's nice, Patricia offered, clearly searching for something kind to say about the clearance aisle frame that had appeared after the spa weekend. Very thoughtful, another friend added, but her eyes were already back on the Napa certificate. I should have felt something. Anger, hurt, disappointment. But I'd been dismissed by better people than my mother's book club friends. I'd sat across from warlords and cartel leaders and enemy combatants, and I'd learned that the person who reacts first usually loses. So I just sipped my coffee and waited. Tiffany never really understood the importance of presentation. Brienne's stage whispered to Philip, but loud enough for half the room to hear. Remember when she showed up to Aunt Deandra's funeral in that awful suit from Macy's? I was on leave from Iraq. I had 3 hours to get to Connecticut. Still, there are standards. Mom launched into a story about Brienne's recent charity gala, something involving ice sculptures and a string quartet, while I watched the veteran at the bar settle his tab. He was getting ready to leave, pulling on a jacket that had seen better days, moving with the careful deliberacy of someone whose body had been through wars it would never quite recover from. He walked past our table on his way to the exit. Then he stopped. I saw his eyes drop to the floor, to where my mother had stashed the frame. The photograph was face up, clearly visible if you were standing at the right angle. He went very still. Then he turned back, bent down slowly, and picked up the frame. His hands shook slightly as he held it. Marine Corps Medal of Honor, he said quietly. The room didn't silence. Most people kept eating, kept talking, but our table did. 2019? I nodded. He studied the photograph for a long moment. It wasn't a fancy shot, just me in dress blues, standing at attention, with the pale blue ribbon and gold star around my neck. The medal itself was visible, hanging at the correct position above my decorations. The photograph had been taken immediately after the ceremony at the White House, before the reception, when I'd had 60 seconds alone in an anteroom, and a young Marine corporal had asked if I wanted a picture for my family. I'd said yes, even though I knew they wouldn't understand what they were looking at. The veteran straightened to attention, a movement so ingrained it was probably involuntary, and his entire bearing changed. Shoulders back, spine straight, chin up. 70-something years old, and he looked like he could run a 5-mile ruck march. "Colonel," he said, and it wasn't a question. "Colonel," I confirmed. He extended his hand. I stood and shook it. His grip was still strong. 17 years, USS Enterprise, he said. Never made it past E6, but I knew plenty of officers. Never met anyone with that medal, though. He nodded toward the photograph. What did you do? Extracted a fire team that was pinned down in Helmand Province. Took some rounds, they made it out. How many rounds? Enough. He smiled at that. The grim smile of someone who'd seen combat and knew that enough meant Too many to count without sounding like you're bragging. Semper Fi, Colonel. Fair winds and following seas. He handed the frame back to me carefully, like it was a holy relic, and walked away. The silence at our table was absolute. Mom was staring at me like I'd suddenly started speaking Mandarin. Brienne's mouth had fallen open, her perfect lipstick framing a perfect O of shock. Patricia had put down her mimosa. Even Philip had looked up from his phone. What? Mom started, then stopped. That medal is the highest military decoration awarded by the United States government, I said calmly, setting the frame on the table where everyone could see it, not hidden, not under anyone's chair, right in the center, next to the untouched basket of bread. It's awarded for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity, at the risk of life above and beyond the call of duty. There have been only 73 recipients since Vietnam. 12 are still living. You're Brienne couldn't finish the sentence. Colonel, United States Marine Corps, 23 years of service. 4 combat deployments, currently assigned to Special Operations Command. But you said, Mom's voice was faint, you said you did security work. I do. I secure entire theaters of operation. I just don't usually discuss the specifics at brunch. Patricia had gone pale. The Marines. You're a Marine. Yes. And that medal? She pointed at the photograph with a shaking finger. The President gave you that medal? President Holloway, 2019, Rose Garden ceremony. I have video if you'd like to see it. Why didn't you tell us? Mom's voice climbed an octave. Why didn't you say something? I've been telling you for 23 years. You just decided you knew better. I picked up my coffee, now cold, and drained it anyway. The room had started to take notice now. Other diners were looking over, drawn by the tension at our table like sailors toward a lighthouse in a storm. That apartment in North Carolina, I continued, my voice conversational, like I was discussing the weather. It's on Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune. Base housing for field-grade officers. Bien, work trips, I take? Those are deployments. Bien, travel you think is so unstable? That's serving my country. And the mystery about my job that you find so concerning? That's called operational security. I literally can't tell you most of what I do because it's classified above your clearance level. Brienne had found her voice again. But you dress so, plainly. You drive that old Honda, you live in a 2-bedroom apartment. I dress functionally, I drive a reliable vehicle that doesn't draw attention. And I live in housing that's appropriate to my rank and assignment. I also have a retirement portfolio that would make Philip's hedge fund look like a lemonade stand, but I've never felt the need to discuss it at family gatherings. Mom looked like she might cry. All this time we thought. You thought I was a failure. I know, you made it very clear. That's not fair, Brienne protested, but her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? I looked at each of them in turn. How many times have you asked me about my career in a way that suggested you actually wanted to know the answer? How many times have you listened when I tried to explain? How many times have you dismissed what I do as that security thing or suggested I should find something more respectable? Patricia was gathering her things. The other book club friends were avoiding eye contact. The young family in the corner had stopped pretending they weren't listening. I came today because you're my family, I said quietly. I gave Mom that photograph because I thought, maybe after all these years, she might want to have a reminder that I've done something with my life. Something that matters. Something bigger than country clubs and charity galas and fucking ice sculptures. Mom flinched at the profanity. I never cursed at family functions. I've spent 2 decades defending this country. I've lost Marines under my command. I've been shot, blown up, and put back together so many times I've lost count. I've made decisions that cost lives and saved lives, and I've had to live with both. I've shaken hands with presidents and kings and generals, and I've eaten MREs in bunkers while mortars fell around me. I've done things I'm proud of, and things that still wake me up at night. I picked up the frame and held it so they could all see it clearly. This medal? The man who gave this to me told me I represented the finest traditions of military service. He said I exemplified courage, sacrifice, and devotion to duty. He said I made my country proud. I set it back down. But apparently I'm still the disappointing daughter who shops at Walgreens and doesn't understand presentation. Mom's face had crumpled. Tears were running down her cheeks, taking her careful makeup with them. "Tiffany, I'm so sorry. We didn't." "No, you didn't." I stood up, leaving cash on the table for my meal, more than enough to cover it because even now, even in this moment, I wouldn't let them pay for me. I have to get back to Lejeune. I have a briefing tomorrow morning that involves actual national security, not neighborhood property values. I picked up my frame, my Walgreens frame with its $5 price tag and its photograph worth more than everything else on this table combined. "Enjoy Napa?" I said to Mom. "I hear the spa treatments are world class." I made it 3 steps before Brienne called out, "Tiffany, wait!" I turned back. She was standing now, her Greenwich sophistication completely shattered, her face doing something I'd never seen before: shame. "I'm sorry." "God, I'm so sorry. We've been terrible to you." "Yes," I agreed. "You have. Can we start over?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not my superior older sister, but a woman who'd spent her entire life measuring success by someone else's ruler, whose greatest achievement was marrying well and decorating beautifully, who'd probably never had to make a decision that mattered beyond which contractor to hire. I almost pitied her. "Maybe," I said finally, "but it starts with you actually wanting to know who I am, not who you think I should be." I walked out of the country club into the bright May sunshine. My rental car was parked next to a Bentley and a Tesla. My Honda, beat up, reliable, 12 years old, looked exactly like what it was: a vehicle that had been driven across a lot of miles by someone who had better things to spend money on than automotive ego. My phone buzzed. Another text from General Morrison: "P.S. Your mom's going to Google you now. Hope you're ready for that conversation." I laughed. A real laugh. The first one I'd had all day. "Already had it, sir. She knows now." How'd she take it? Like a civilian taking indirect fire. Complete surprise and no idea how to respond. "Semper Fi, Colonel. See you at the briefing." Semper Fi. I got in my car, set the frame carefully on the passenger seat, and drove away from the country club, away from Connecticut, away from the life my family had built their entire identity around. I had a 4-hour drive back to Lejeune. I had reports to review, operations to plan, Marines to lead. I had a job that mattered, a rank I'd earned through blood and sacrifice, and a medal that represented the finest moment of a career built on thousands of moments just like it. I had everything that mattered. And I had a photograph in a $5 frame that I'd hang in my office, right next to my commission certificate and my unit citations, where every Marine who walked through my door would know exactly what it meant. Not because I needed them to know, but because I'd earned the right to be proud of it. 3 weeks later, a package arrived at my office. Inside was a letter from Mom. 5 pages long, handwritten, explaining everything she'd never understood about my choices. Apologizing for everything she'd gotten wrong. Asking if she could visit, see where I lived, understand my world. And attached to the letter was a photograph of the Napa Valley Spa certificate, torn neatly in half. Brienne had included a note too: "I've been wrong about everything. Can I start over? Can we actually be sisters?" Quote, "I sat at my desk, the desk of a Marine Corps colonel, in an office that overlooked the training grounds where the next generation of warriors learned their trade, and read those letters 3 times. Then I picked up my phone and called Mom. 'Hey,' I said when she answered, her voice tentative and uncertain. 'So about that visit.' She started crying. Happy crying, I think. It was hard to tell over the phone. 'I'd like to show you around base,' I continued. 'Introduce you to some of my Marines. Help you understand what I actually do. No more guessing, no more assumptions, just the truth.' 'I'd like that,' she whispered. I'd like that very much. One condition, though. Anything. When you visit, you have to tell people what I really do. No more security work. No more vagueness. If someone asks about your daughter, I want you to be able to say, she's a Marine Corps colonel. She earned the Medal of Honor. And I'm proud of her. I can do that, Mom said, and her voice was stronger now. Certain. I should have been saying that all along. Yeah, I agreed, you should have. But we all start where we are, not where we wish we'd been. And sometimes, a $5 frame from Walgreens carries more weight than all the gift certificates in Napa Valley. Sometimes, the smallest gesture is the one that changes everything. And sometimes, the people who underestimated you their entire lives finally learn to see you clearly. Not because you proved them wrong, but because you finally stopped letting them define what being right looked like.